Well, howdy, roofers, and welcome to Roofer Growth Hacks, the podcast that is dedicated to highlighting those in the roofing industry, learning how they overcame growth challenges with creative growth hacks, and connecting them with others in the roofing industry. I'm your host, Chris Hunter, founder and chief marketing officer of roofingsites.com. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Digital Marketing for Roofers. Got a little story for you, roofers. Jonathan Cinelli with Jonathan Cinelli Coaching and Consulting shares with us on this episode his 5 principles of leadership and how to apply them to your roofing company. So be sure to listen up as he shares some awesome growth hacks. Welcome back, roofers. I have got a special guest here today. Let's welcome Jonathan Cinelli with Jonathan Cinelli Coaching and Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us, Jonathan. So to kick this off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your entrepreneurial journey? Where did it start? Where are you now?
I took a deep breath because there's no short answer to this. Truthfully, I believe it started well before I was born. You know, I believe in God and that we're here for a reason. And I didn't even know the reason. But I'll tell you, I had the pleasure of growing up in a family-run business, electrical contractors. And since I can remember, so I'm going to say 7 or 8 years old, I was there with my twin brother and my dad, whether that be emptying garbages, cleaning toilets, pivoting through whatever it was, learning the trade. And man, did it suck at times. And especially through the high school years, it was terrible. And I say terrible because it wasn't what everybody else was doing. So there's where the journey started. And the lessons learned from my dad along the way I remember really going to play hockey and embarrassed as a kid to show up in work jeans and dirty stuff. And you know, the lessons you learn is like never be embarrassed to work and show up. So you know, let's fast forward from there. The journey continues. I obtained my electrical license, got into procurement, project management. I eventually found my niche. We then merged with a larger company, and I found my niche in the project management world because I had a love for people at a young age. I knew I was in love with people, and I just didn't know what that all meant until I did. When I stepped into the realm of project management, everything else shifted. Again, no short answer because through all of this, I'm a lifelong learner, continuous education, every bit of information I could pull up, dig into, program, course, you name it, I was there. Like I was blindly just jumping in and learning. Certifications, got them all, did it all. And 15, almost 20 years later, left an organization that I was a part of for so long. And I tell you this because it would have been really easy to put up the sails and ride off into the sunset and say, all right, folks, see you later. You know, name your price, name your position, name your thing. And the titles, the rewards, it became empty and meaningless for me. And where I took that was so many different directions. I ended up leaving. I wrote a book about some of the lessons I learned through my journey. Thanks, man. Holy, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got it, read through it real quickly. Yeah. Loved it.
I got to tell you something about that book, if you allow me the time and space, because this is a huge part of the journey.
Yeah, for sure. Love to hear about it.
Oh gosh, I'll never forget the day. It was the date of our son's birthday, November 26th, and it was never planned. But I remember saying to my wife the night before, I have a meeting with Doug, which was my boss at the time, and I didn't know what it meant. But she's like, "Is this it? Like, are you done?" And there's a lot of stuff that was happening in the background. So my wonderful wife, she knew that something was brewing inside of me, and it was fermenting and marinating in my brain. And I said, I don't know. But I'll tell you, when I stepped into his office that morning, I was shaking. I was nervous. I stood there. It felt like 500 pounds sitting on my back. And I just looked at him and said, Doug, I love this organization. I love what you've done for me as a human being. And I've written this book. Here's the thing. I didn't tell anybody about it. And I didn't know what it meant, except that I knew that I said, listen, I believe in myself. I believe there's something desire inside of me that is pulling at my cells. And I love Oz Electric. And I'm such a committed person that it's not fair to me or to Oz to have one foot in and one foot out. And I don't even know what that means. But for that reason, I don't know what the next phase is. All I know is that by January, whatever date it was, 2nd, I need to pivot to something different. And I was in tears. Holy smokes, was I in tears. And it's like when you're saying that, I'm going to get a 2x4 to the head or something. Right? Like you're sitting there and I'm just, and the next thing that happened will stick with me for the rest of my life. He said to me, are you scared? I said, I'm terrified. He said, good. Then you're doing something right.
Wow.
And he shook my hand and said, well done, man. Well done. He said, there's something special inside of you. Share it with the world.
Wow.
And that was it.
That's amazing.
6 weeks later, listen, I was always coaching within that organization. And there was, Chris, there's so much there. Maybe we get into it, maybe we don't, but it's so deep. The things I learned, the leadership styles, and through all of that. And all I can tell you is that I stepped out and started my own business. And a year after that, pivoted into podcasting and speaking engagements and coaching minor hockey teams, because that was the next thing that was just driving me.
Hockey teams, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh. Like, so there's something special. We have 2 children, 10 and 7. Neither one of them skate. They have no interest for hockey. So I started coaching hockey in 2015, and then on and off. The last 2 seasons, I'll tell you, these athletes have broken me mentally.
Wow.
Physically, they outweigh me, they outperform me. This year, I'm coaching U18 athletes.
Yeah.
Wow. Are we different? Like, wow. Because I look at this and go, this is our future leaders. These are the folks that are going to run our world. The messages I share with the construction professionals out there is no different than I share with athletes. It's framed differently, but we're talking the same things.
Sure. Right.
So, like I said, there's no short answers to any of that, and I'll unpack any of it or all of it, whatever you choose, except that that's a real narrowed version of that journey.
Love it. So, all right, you wrote the book, right? And then you said, oh, okay, I'm going to start my coaching career, right? In coaching and consulting. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
What drove you to write the book?
I think this started, I know that there was something inside of me several years before that book. And I had literally opened a Word document and started writing stuff down. And I think I had called it, I don't even know what that title was, but what was brewing inside me was there was something more. And I was seeing rises and falls and pivots and throughout the construction industry. And I started to question myself, like, why are projects that are destined to fail succeeding? And why are projects that are, these are going to be rock star projects, yet they'd fail? And it came down to the people. Wow. And so that's the messaging I wanted to share, because many projects you step on, like, oh, the scope is great. The changes, we got a lot of changes. We're going to make a ton of money on this. And it always became about the money. And for me, it was never about the money. The money occurred as a result of all the right things. So it became a thought to say, if nobody reads this book, and thank you for having the time and space to do so, it was like, I want to share with future generations things that I learned. And if one thing served them well, then high five, job well done. Then the day I die, the day of my eulogy, then I'll know that at least I impacted one human being. And that's how it started.
Love it. Why don't we dig into it? As I was reading through your book, by the way, if you're listening to this, the name of his book is Kick Your Ego Aside and Put People First. Okay. And it's a book about leadership. So there are 5 guiding principles that you have there. Why don't you talk through those a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I talk about being the best, so 1, be the best version of yourself. What that really means is, like, look, you're of disservice to everybody else out there unless you're whole and complete. And if you're not doing the hard work yourself, then excuse me, but who the heck are you to tell somebody else all the stuff they're doing wrong? And this resonated deeply with me, because I found construction traditionally was very different. It was always a pointing the finger. You should be doing this. You need to do this. It's got to be done this way. And I'm like, whoa, chill. So I was never one to shy away from learning and digging and questioning everything. And that became the fundamental underpinning. And I share a story, and that this like, all of this stuff is real. I don't make this. You can't make these things up, man. There was a project that it was just like, this thing was going to be an epic fail. And I mean, if you can imagine metrics, it was still a failure. And that was almost 20 years ago, 2005, I think that project was. I'm still connected to people because of the impact we left.
Wow. That's awesome.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, then we talk about being the coach. And again, this is piggybacking that. Once you sort of have the competence and the skill set, like, be there for others. When you become curious and you realize it's not about you, it's about everybody else out there, wow, does the world open up.
Mm-hmm.
And that illuminated for me when I'd step on sites and I'd see people like down and out and just like passing the blame, like, whoa, what's really going on here?
I love that first part, being the best version of yourself, because that's been a guiding principle for me. I believe my entire life. I've always dug into books and programs and stuff like that, and constant education. Actually, that is one of our core values at my company, because that's one of my core values of, always learning. You have to always
Yeah.
be learning, especially with mine, in marketing, it's constantly changing. So you have to always be learning and helping your customers, your clients get better results. Well, what about any of the other principles?
Then we talk about hiring the right team and then never leaving the team, like building the right team and never leaving the team. And this one, again, I just say, holy smokes, I just saw him last night, actually, an individual that, was hired and then dismissed for all of the wrong reasons and is thriving today. But it really resonated because I'm a huge fan of Captain America. And one thing I've learned through that storytelling is the importance of like building the right team and then never ever turning your back on the team. Again, one of the things I would routinely see is that, there was a people around, you might be talking nicely of them, but the door would close and a whole different message would be said. And I could never take a stand for, I never have taken a stand for that. So it's about building the right team, even against all other parameters out there. When the external world is saying, no, 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 I'm saying, Bob, we've pivot and question yourself and say, what's really going on here? Is this a person I wanted? How did I do that? Becoming tremendously curious about them and asking thought-provoking questions. Because I want to know who the human being is. The skill set and the competence is going to be taught. And then, stuff's going to go sideways. That's part of life. When you blindly support your team and you have their back, psychological safety is formed. And that gets transmitted everywhere else. So
have the team's back. Absolutely. Build the right team. And that's something that I learned a while back on, implementing entrepreneur's operating system in my business is you got to have the right person in the right seat, right? You can have the right person, not the right person in the right seat, but it all comes down to the right person. What about number 4?
Build a friendship first based on vulnerability and intentionality, if I recall the order sort of slipped my mind. But what I was talking about there was, again, connection with human beings, like know who you're dealing with and be intentional about it. And then lead with vulnerability. Now, and this was one of the story that actually occurred on a job site and how I shared it in my book. Oh my gosh, was it like I was a jerk and I kept lying and bobbing and weaving and thinking it was the right thing to do until I realized it wasn't, and the impact it had. And then showing up with vulnerability flipped the script and changed everything. Because vulnerability is oftentimes regarded, especially in site meetings and everything else, as, oh, you're weak, you failed, you're a failure. No, man, it's the exact opposite. Vulnerability builds strength and builds trust. And see, when I showed up with vulnerability, what happened was, I'll never forget the site meeting. Like, human beings pulled together. I'm like, okay. And it was something like, it was about equipment deliveries and how I had lied and failed and pivoted. And then once I came clean about it and showed vulnerability, there's 20 people around this table, maybe more. It was just like a breath of fresh air. And then the human to human connection arrived. Okay, Jonathan, here's what we're going to do. If I did this, would that be helpful? Yeah, man, it would be. Yeah, man, it would be. See, and what happened was everybody was just sort of like, I don't want to say it this way, but this is sort of, everybody like, oh, how can I screw this person? Until you're like, I messed up. Here's the truth. How can you guys help? I didn't even say, how can you help me pivot through that? I didn't need to. It just organically occurred. Jonathan, if we do this, when with the equipment arrived by here, and you started co-creating solutions. So unpacking that one was cool. I'm going to pivot right into the other principle there, which be a catalyst for creativity. One of my favorites, because this was just super cool. This was the story I shared in the book here was literally a job site that was all new, right? It was a young foreman, maybe first or second job, great human being. He was tremendously like discombobulated with, not with the work or the connection with people. It was just the way guys were showing up or not showing up. And we pivoted through things. And I learned a lot about human to human connection using a whiteboard. I'm a huge fan of a whiteboard. But you got to picture this. This site trailer had a 4 foot wide by 8 foot long whiteboard. And every time I would go there, which was multiple times a week, I put a thought-provoking question or a quote or something that just resonated with me, right? Until the one day I showed up and they're like, I walked into the trailer, right? Because oftentimes, but I get there, sometimes the boys would be in the trailer, sometimes they wouldn't, right? So I always walk in, right? And folks, like when you go somewhere, show up with energy, please. And if you have an opportunity to, for me, I would bring coffee, or we'd have a coffee machine on site. Like, bring something that connects people, right? Anyhow, here I am, and this job at this time sucked. Okay, so the energy was low, and that was where like, okay, all right, Jonathan, be the coach, bring it all up. I walk in this room, and on this whiteboard, it's like these boys had, hey JC, we have a quote for you. We have a riddle for you, or a quote. It was a riddle, but they said we have a quote for you, and it was, if a ball cost $1.05, I don't remember the actual parameters of it. It's in the book, but if a ball costs $1.05 and the bat costs 10 cents, how much did the ball cost? And I was stuck. I broke it in tears. I'm not even kidding.
Wow, really?
I called Marlene was her name. She was the backbone of everything I did. I called her at head office. I'm like, Marlene, we're doing it, man. Like, something is shifting. Something just shifted. And I sent her a picture, and that fosters such great conversations. And from that moment in time on that project, everything shifted. These guys, we started to have real deep conversations, a human-to-human connection. I don't want to dig into the metrics and make everybody wrong and blame. Like, human to human beings. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Okay. So what would you say, you work with a lot of contractors. What would you say that the biggest mistake that you see contractors do, and how do you help them fix it?
Well, that's a real heavy question, and there's no short answer to that. So let me pick one thing, and I'm going to say shift the language that we use. And what I mean by that is two simple changes. The first two things that come to my mind are the reversal of the word should and could, especially in the construction where we hear the Jonathan, you should be doing it this way. It should have been done this way. To me, should is such a BS word. Should is somebody else's rules and regulations. So I challenge the status quo and say, every time the word should shows up, flip it with could. Jonathan, you could do it this way. It could have been done this way. But tell me more about your thought process on how you executed the following ways. So there's the first thing when I talk about language. And the other thing I challenge folks to do is inject the word yet.
Okay.
Not, we haven't done this yet.
Oh, I love that.
The equipment's not on site yet. That task is not completed yet. And I'm not here to make somebody wrong. I'm saying when you use that, it's not like yet is an opening. It's like opening the window to what's next.
I love that.
Right? It's opening that door. There's so much more, but if we start with language, I mean, everything else changes.
I agree. That's awesome. Love that. Looking forward, right? Looking in the crystal ball for 2024, beyond, all that kind of stuff. You work with contractors, you work with people in our space, most likely, right? And
yes.
And when I say our space, I mean like in the roofing industry, because that's what Roofer Growth Hacks is all about, right? But looking forward, what are some industry trends that you see, and how should roofing company owners really take advantage of those?
Quite simply, as professionals, we need to connect with people more, because what I'm seeing is a lot less connection. Two things are present: connection and psychological safety, right? Because if there's psychological safety in an organization, then that human being is never going to leave. And connection, what I mean by connection is I actually know the person in front of you. Hey man, look, you and I connected this morning, and it was like, holy smokes! Right away, it was like, okay, we're a couple of days away from the holiday. What's going on? And we talked about children and the connection, and I learned so much about you in like 3 or 4 minutes. That's huge.
I agree. Same.
That's what matters. And we're trending a couple of different things. The loyalty on so loyalty is a huge thing right now. Loyalty between customers. So clients and customers are not the same. Vendors are not the same, and personnel is not the same. The word loyalty is shifted. So rather than, it becomes really easy to armor up and tell everybody else how they're wrong and complain and victim and limiting beliefs, or take a temperature reading and go, okay, so if loyalty is shifting, how do we prepare ourselves for that? How do we evolve to the next version? Well, when you connect with people, you foster an environment of psychological safety, and you trust people. They got you no different than a franchise sports teams, man. No different. Like, sports is such a huge analogy, but why do the best of the best athletes stay with teams for so long?
Yeah. Why do the Tom Brady's stay with the England Patriots, right? New England Patriots,
right?
For as long as he did. They weren't loyal to him, obviously, at the very end there of his career. So
yeah,
it's so important. It's such an important, thought there to connect with people in a day and age when, I mean, look at us. We're on Zoom right now.
Yeah.
And how do you make that connection? Well, it's Honestly, it comes down to, what you talked about even in the first chapter, even just caring about people, right? Caring about the other person sitting across from you and learning about them. So I think that's, very, very important. We're going to take a pause here to listen to a message from our sponsor, roofingsites.com. Since 2018, roofingsites.com has helped roofers double their sales by getting their marketing right using the 4R roofing marketing system. If you're a roofing company owner wanting to grow your business, be sure to go to roofingsites.com and sign up for a roofing marketing strategy session with me. All right. And we are back and we're heading into our lightning round. Lightning round is real fun. And the only rule that we have here is that you have 1 minute or less to answer each question. You ready, Jonathan?
Oh my gosh, you're holding me to 1 minute. This is fun and challenging and exciting. I'm ready to roll.
Awesome. All right. So the first question, since we are Roofer Growth Hacks, right? Learning how to hack the growth of our companies, what is your favorite personal hack, book, or podcast?
Heavy question. It depends on the flavor of my life. One thing, I'm going to say one podcast I'm listening to right now that's really serving me well is the Dad's Edge podcast with Larry Hagner, because that's really important in my life right now.
And that's just because we talked before, not because, but we talked before and we talked about kids and so forth. And you have some young kids and I have older kids, and yeah, being a dad is super, super important. So love that. Okay. So next question. What is your favorite business hack, book, or podcast?
Favorite business hack, book, or podcast? I like the book Mindset by Dr. Carol. It was huge for me. Good to Great, classic, Jim Collins. Like that is must read, period.
Yes. Love it. Okay. So next question. What is the best advice that you have ever been given and how have you applied it?
The best advice I've ever been given was the realization when I was told it's not about you. And man, did that resonate in every vein, cell in my body. And how have I applied that? It's recreated who I am today in everything I do.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on here, Jonathan. How can the Roofer Growth Hacks family get in touch with you and how can we support you and encourage you?
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. You are supporting me just by having this conversation because it's tremendously meaningful to me. Folks can get in touch with me the easiest way. My website is www.jonathancinelli. My cell phone, I share this openly, is 416-717-4139. I'm in Toronto, Canada. A simple text, a telephone call, like we're human beings. And there's so much to unpack, questions. We all go through pivots in life. And sometimes we just need somebody. So I share that openly. That's the best way to get in touch with me.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on Roofer Growth Hacks today, Jonathan. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, how about that, Roofers? Was that pretty awesome or what? I know that I wrote down a ton of things in my notebook here, but I got to say that the biggest thing that I took away from that interview with Jonathan is his best advice. It's not about you. I've heard that over and over and over again from very successful entrepreneurs when they said that they made the mindset shift, right? Of saying, okay, what I'm building here is not just about me. It's about my employees. It's about my customers. It's about my clients, whoever. When they made that mindset shift, it was a huge change to their company. And I think that every roofer that's listening to this right now, you need to make that mindset shift there. Try saying that several times in a row, by the way, but make that mindset shift, okay? And say, it's not about me. This is not about me. This is about my employees. This is about building them. It's about my customers. It's about making sure that they have solid roofs over their heads. It's about making sure that I give back to my community. It's not all about me. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Roofer Growth Hacks. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you connect with today's guests. I also hope that you connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram or anywhere online, really. You can check out our website at roofingsites.com. And while you're there, you can listen to other previous episodes. I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, roofingsites.com. Since 2018, roofingsites.com has helped roofers double their sales by getting their marketing right using the 4R roofing marketing system. If you're a roofing company owner wanting to grow your business, be sure to go to roofingsites.com and sign up for a roofing marketing strategy session with me. This past year, you see, I published my book, The Ultimate Guide to Digital Marketing for Roofers. If you're a roofing company owner and you don't have this book in your hands, I will send it to you for free. Just go to go.roofingsites.com and I'll send you a free copy of my book. Well, roofers, join me next time when we connect with another great roofing entrepreneur and learn how they hack their growth. Till then, I'm Chris Hunter. Thanks and gig 'em.